The Netherlands, Amsterdam. Wow, that's awesome. I love Amsterdam, one of my favorite cities. I've spent a bit of time there. Okay, I'm just going to get straight into it. So, the questions that we have, please advise how to deal with current circumstances. Sometimes feels like the work we are doing, the mental diet, changing the story, is going to work, or we're delusional. Okay, I think the question there is how to deal with current circumstances when you're trying to change them. Yes, I'm sure we all know, if you've been working with law of assumption for some time, when you are working with a current situation and you're telling yourself a story that is not yet in reality, that can feel like you are delusional. Yes, it can feel like you're going crazy. It feels like you're going insane. It can feel like you're going a bit nuts. But the thing is with this is that's just because we have been conditioned to believe that reality comes first and we in our imagination comes second to reality. And that what we're seeing in reality is true and that what we're doing in imagination is false. So what we need to do is just flip that script and remind ourselves every day. Now, I have to remind myself every day of the way this game works, which is what I'm doing in imagination is what's causing my reality, not today, because today's manifestation is a result of yesterday's imaginings. Today's imaginings is going to produce tomorrow's reality. So there's a bit of a lag time with reality. Obviously, you can have instant manifestations, but you want to get into the habit of flipping that script and placing more value on what you're doing in imagination and what you're doing in consciousness, and a little less value on what's happening in reality. Because remember, reality is a product of yesterday's consciousness. So today, the day that you're experiencing now, is the birthday of your consciousness. So everything that you've been doing in your consciousness is now being birthed in this 24-hour cycle. So if you want to change that, you have to take your focus off this 24-hour cycle, what's happening today, and you have to go into your imagination and you have to create another tomorrow in imagination that's different from the one today. So yeah, that can feel like you're going a bit mad, but that's the game, because as Neville says, an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. So you have to kind of deceive and delude yourself into a story that hasn't yet been produced in your reality. So that is the key. That is why it can be a little bit crazy, or crazy making, but that's the flip. That's why we get caught up with the doubts and the resistance, is because we've just been conditioned to believing reality is real. And it's coming at us, and it's happening to us, as opposed to us producing it from what we've been thinking about and imagining and, ruminating on and having conversations about and, writing in our diaries about and all of that stuff. We have to remember every day, and I have to remember every day. So I would encourage you to remind yourself every day. Okay. Thank you for that question. Next question. If anyone here has a question, let me know. Oh, gosh. Hi, Virginia, from Virginia, Scotland. Hello. Lisa, I want to delete someone from my reality. Any thoughts on this? I have a mandatory meeting over Zoom where this person will be there. How can I delete this now so I don't have to experience it? Yeah, you can delete anyone from your reality, but you don't do it from resentment. You don't do it from pushing or resisting them. You have to bring it in. So Lisa, I would encourage you to ask, what is it about this person that you don't want? What are the qualities that trigger you? What are the qualities you're judging? Write a list. They are this, 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 this. Then you use the I am technique. I am this, 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 and this, because they are reflecting back your blind spots. But remember, your infinite consciousness, you have everything within you. Anything that you are seeing reflected back in your characters are representing a characteristic within you. Your characters are reflecting your characteristics, and the ones that we don't like, they're generally the ones that we don't like within ourselves. So then once you can see the qualities in yourself, then you rewrite them, and you can either reproject it onto that person, or you can dissolve that person, because you're no longer resisting or pushing them away. Now, I've done this many, many times, not from a place of trying to get rid of anyone, just going, okay, well, that character has played their role in their movie. They've helped me see what I couldn't see within myself. Now that I can see that I have those qualities within me, they no longer have to show up in my movie, so I can dissolve them. So then you can actually just get an imaginary eraser and you can imagine them like erasing them from the Zoom squares on the meeting. You can absolutely do it. Just make sure you're not doing it from a place of resentment. Um, hey, what have we got here? Okay, I'll go to here. Sorry. Okay, questions. Oh, where have my questions gone? Comments. Oh shit! I've lost the questions. Oh no. Okay. Oh, here we go. Sorry. Okay. How to deal with the mirror when manifesting physical appearance changes when I find myself reacting and getting discouraged. Kind of similar to and that's from user. Hello, user. That's kind of similar to the one before. With you, when you're dealing with physical appearances, you can absolutely change physical appearances. Absolutely. You can change anything in your physical reality because your physical reality is a product of consciousness. So I just want, like, that's a blanket statement. Just always remember that. Anything that's in reality is a product of consciousness. Therefore, it has the qualities of consciousness inherent within it. And consciousness is not fixed, it can be changed. So, therefore, reality is not fixed and it can be changed. So, if you are looking at something that has solidified, such as a physical appearance, it's the same process. You have to well, first of all, you've got to acknowledge it as opposed to resisting or pushing away. So anything you're seeing in the mirror, you want to own it. If you're seeing scarring on your skin, I am scarred. You've got to own it. You've got to own what it is that you want to change. So I am scarred. I am my skin and I am scarred. And then you have to imagine the opposite. So I am healed. I am smooth. What's the opposite of scar? I'm healed. I'm smooth. So then what you would do is you would imagine yourself standing in front of the mirror. So you can actually do this physically where you go in and you stand in front of the mirror, but then you close your eyes so you take your attention off the mirror, but you're still imagining yourself looking in the mirror. But instead of seeing what you were seeing before, you're now seeing what you're imagining to be seeing. So you kind of like you're working with both realities. You're working with your current reality and you're working with your imagined reality. So you're doing there's no rules with this. You have to find a way that you can deceive yourself in a healthy way. And, so I will actually go through the physical action of something, but then I'll close my eyes to shut out the current reality. And then I'll bring up my imagined reality. And then I will imagine seeing what I'm seeing. The key with this is you've got to own and acknowledge what you're trying to change. You cannot ignore reality without first acknowledging it. So you have to bring it in, acknowledge I am whatever it is. I am aging. I am young. I am, because you're everything, you're both. So if I'm aging, I'm also young or I'm youthful. And so then you might be seeing yourself aging in some way, but then if you close your eyes, you can actually see your youthfulness. And then if you see that long enough and you deny what you're seeing in current reality, your current reality has to reorganize itself and you will see that shift. And nothing will have changed in the mirror, you know what I mean? Like it's actually you who's changing what you're seeing based on the stories and the assumptions that you're holding. So I would play with that, but you can absolutely, and I have actually shifted. I'll do a video on this because I have actually shifted a physical thing that I was working on with my body. And it took quite a while because I actually had gone through an operation. So I had to revise the operation and I had to play it out differently. And I had to rehearse that so many times because my brain kept going back to what had actually happened. So I had to keep working with my imagination and keep replaying the new memory until I convinced myself that actually the operation didn't happen. And then what happened with that is my body caught up to the new memory where the operation didn't happen. So I'll do a video on that because that's pretty awesome. Okay, what's the best tips in maintaining, hi Wing, what are the best tips in maintaining the wish fulfilled against the 3D? Gosh, I feel like I'm answering the same question. I think that answers the question, maybe. So, okay, maintaining. Let's talk about maintaining the wish fulfilled. If you are wanting to produce something that hasn't yet shown up in your reality and you're wanting to keep the momentum, I would suggest creating one scene that implies you already have it. Because if you're trying to create a whole narrative, you can get lost in that narrative. So what I do is I just create one scene that implies that I have it. And I make that scene about a year after I have that thing, because then it's normalized. Because what happens is the scene that you create when you like you're getting it for the first time, it's like, oh my God, wow, and it's like, but that's not normal to stay in that excited state. So I create a scene where I'm just going about my life and I now have this thing and it's become normal in my life. So it's about a year after. And then I just play that scene out. And anytime I find myself doubting or resisting, or mainly doubting, I will just click into that scene. I'll go, oh, hang on a second. I know that I have that thing, because I can imagine it's in my imagination. And I know that consciousness is the one and only reality, and reality is always reflecting back my consciousness. And I know that this 24-hour cycle that I'm experiencing in reality is a result of what I've been doing in my past consciousness. So if it's not in this current 24-hour cycle, I know that it's going to be in another current 24-hour cycle. I don't work in linear time. I work in 24-hour cycles, because this now is all we have. Past and future, just concepts of consciousness. They don't exist other than in imagination. So we think of past and future, but we're imagining it. It doesn't actually exist. So the only thing we have is this now, and this now is a result of previous consciousness, what you've been doing and thinking about and talking about. So yeah, Damien says, don't give up, ignore the 3D. People are doing, but do they complete that book? When you're looking out, you're not looking in and finishing that book. Oh, I think that was just a comment. Thanks, Damien. Hi, Ryan. Hi, Jenna. What's the biggest mistake you see people making when they first use the law of assumption? Great question. First of all, there are no mistakes. You can't mess anything up. There's nothing wrong with you. Nothing's your fault. This is just a process of awakening, and it's like we're little babies learning to walk. We're going to fall over, but falling over is not your fault. It's like we've forgotten who we are, and this is an adventure of remembering, and we're all on it, and we're all helping each other on that adventure. So there's no mistakes. There's just kind of the waking up and the forgetting and the waking up. Like, I forget who I am multiple times throughout the day. So I guess the biggest mistake, which is not really a mistake, it's just something that I see happening, is that when people come into law of assumption for the first time, you're really excited, as I was when I rediscovered it, because it's like, oh my God, I'm not a victim to my reality. I can change my life. Like, my reality is not set. And these things that are happening that I don't like, I can 100% change it. That's awesome. This is exciting. Oh my God, like, everything's going to be different. I'm going to transform myself. So there's that initial excitement. And then you start working on your stories and you realize that, oh shit, I've been telling myself some pretty awful stories for a really long time. And so what I see is that there's a purge. And I've seen this time and time again, that there's an emotional and a physical purge. And what people mistake it for is depression, or like some kind of, they might have had depression in the past. Now, if I don't want to discount any mental illness, and if you know or worry that might be what's happening, I would 100% advise you to go and see a medical professional always. But depression is different from purge. A purge is like an emotional release. Like when you get a cold, a really bad cold, it's awful. It feels terrible. But it's actually the body releasing the crap that it no longer needs. It's like a release. So it is actually a really healthy thing. But it doesn't feel good when you're going through it. And I see the same with that emotional purge. And it generally happens in the beginning when somebody's coming into law of assumption for the first time. And there's a lot of crap that comes up that's been in there for a really long time, and it has to come out, and there can be crying. You can actually get physically sick. You can feel depressed, but it's not a permanent state. But people, because we don't understand what a purge is, we don't even use that language generally in day to day, we immediately box it into a mental illness. And it's not that, and it does pass. It might take a couple of weeks, but it's not permanent. So that is something that I see, that I have to remind people, no, this is just part of the process. Just hold yourself through this. Like, there's no other way to go through it other than through it. So you just have to be really kind and gentle and loving with yourself. And I can still have purges, even though I've been doing this for a couple of years now. When I come upon a story that I haven't been aware of, and it's it's been a limiting story that I've been holding for some time, I can actually have a day where I just feel like crap and I just want to go to bed. And sometimes that's what I do. I just go and have a nap, because sleep is the great reset. So if you can go and have a sleep, you will feel better when you come out after it. Um, so, hi, Rebecca. I feel like everyone lately is waking up. Have I jumped to a different parallel reality? Well, yes, Rebecca, if that is in your reality, then that's exactly what's happening because you are the infinite I am of your movie, and everyone in your movie is a support character playing. So, yeah, you're waking up and then you're seeing all of your characters wake up. And so you have shifted timelines. And of course, we're constantly shifting timelines. You're like throughout the day, you will shift timelines multiple times throughout the day. What we want to do is get more proficient with actually jumping onto a timeline that is the one we want to be on and then holding it and staying it and not falling off. I fell off one like just recently. I was catching up with family because this is around Christmas and New Year, and they started asking about my family past, and whew, I got caught telling the old story. I'd revised this story many, many times, and I got caught telling the old story. And it's interesting because I I had a day where I just like went into a bit of a like a blur. And I thought, oh my God, this is what happens. Like this is what happens when I tell the old unfavorable story. I reactivate it. I jump back on that timeline, and then I'm back on it, that familiar feeling of like, this feels like shit. And so I recognized that that's what was happening. So then I just reminded myself of the new story, got back on that timeline, and I woke up the next day and felt great. And I was just back on it. So you can always shift timelines. Remember, nothing is fixed. Anything that you're experiencing in your reality right now is not fixed. You can shift it. And there's an infinite number of possibilities available to you right now that if you can align to it and you can actually shift your state of consciousness onto it, where you can actually feel and you engage your senses on it, and you can hold that, then yeah, you've just shifted a timeline. We're doing it constantly. It's really cool. Okay. Let me go to a couple more questions. Hi, Hedley. Hi, Jenna. I think you're on here too. Hi, Jenna. Do you have any advice when it comes to dealing with current circumstances, reality, while waiting for your desired reality to show up? Sometimes I find myself feeling discouraged and having feelings of doubt that start to creep in. I actually have done a video on this. It's coming out, I think, on Friday or Monday. It's what to do while you're waiting for your manifestation to show up. Because that waiting time, it's like a waiting room. It can actually be really interesting. So while you're waiting for your manifestation, I want you to become really observant as to what are the thoughts that are coming up while you're waiting, because those thoughts, those doubts, are assumptions that you're holding in subconscious. So they're there bubbling beneath the surface, and they're probably preventing you from actually bringing in things a lot faster. So you want to actually bring those doubts to the surface, acknowledge them. And I'll give you an example because this happened to me recently. Okay, this is what I made the video about. But I had sent an email to somebody, and I knew that there would be a delay in receiving an email back. But the delay had kind of gone on a little bit longer. So in that little waiting period, I started to look at what were the doubts that were coming up. And my first thought was, oh my God, I've upset them. I've done something wrong. Now, that was super interesting for me to see, because that's an assumption that I have running in my subconscious, that I've upset them and I've done something wrong. So that was the first assumption I jumped to when I didn't get the immediate response. I've done something wrong. And I know where that assumption comes from. It comes from childhood. It comes from the programming that I received, that I had to always be on my best behavior and I was sort of walking on eggshells. And I realized that that assumption's still within me, that I do, I do something, I upset people and I do something wrong. So I saw it and I changed it. That's all I did. That's all you do. Like once you see something, you just change it. You don't have to go back and look for where it came from. I knew where it came from, so I just revised it. But I changed that to, I'm always doing everything right, and I make people feel better. Like it's simple. It's not, that sounds stupid and trite, but I just write the opposite of it. I literally, that's all I do. I just see it and then I go, oh, that's shit. I don't want that. So I'm just going to write the opposite. And what's the opposite? Well, I'm doing the right, I'm just doing right by people and I'm making them feel good. And then I got a response pretty much straight away as soon as I changed those assumptions. And it was, nothing had happened. It just got delayed. There was actually there was nothing in that delay. But what was great for me was that it gave me an opportunity to see that assumption. So if you're waiting for your manifestation to come up, look at what the assumptions are coming up while you're waiting, and then just change them, just rewrite them. It's really that simple. Okay. What else? Oh, yeah, let's do one here. Hi, back towards light. That sounds like a fun journey. Hedley, when we are imagining or in a desired state, are we really touching a parallel reality that actually exists? It's not just imagination. For example, seeing, feeling in a conversation, it's actually happening in that parallel reality. Yes, 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 it's actually happening. There are an infinite number of possibilities occurring right now. The one you're experiencing, it's solidified, because that's like if you put a cake in an oven long enough, it's going to solidify. So if you hold your awareness and attention on something long enough, it's going to solidify. It doesn't mean it's fixed, but there's still, as you're experiencing this reality, there's still an infinite number of realities possible, like occurring right now, that are possible. So if you don't like a current situation in your reality right now, you have an infinite number to choose from. And how do you know? If you can imagine it, that's because it's real. It just hasn't solidified. But reality is not real. Reality is the reflection of what's real. What's real is what you can imagine. That's why anything is possible, because if you can imagine it, it has to be possible. Otherwise, you would not be able to imagine it. So it's just that we have been taught to place more value on reality, and we believe that reality is real. And of course, reality has the word real in it. The whole thing's a setup. Don't believe it. It's all backwards. It's like in a camera. When you take a photo of something, the photo gets developed as a negative, means the opposite. And then for you to be able to see the photo, it's produced by the negative. It's the opposite. Everything's kind of back to front and upside down. So it's like, yeah, it's just the same. It's like the same. There's just like, what's real is what you can imagine. That's real. And if you can imagine it long enough, it then becomes reflected in reality. So reality is just the reflection of what's real, and what's real is what you're doing in consciousness and what you can imagine, which is why there's infinite possibilities that are occurring right now. And what you're experiencing right now is just a solidified version of what you have been focusing on. That's it. Okay. Hi, Lauren. What have we got? How do we access our limiting assumption beliefs in our subconscious, the ones we can't see? Or is this not necessary? Oh my gosh, yes, I love this. Great question. Sorry, I'll just finish reading it. Or is it not necessary if they end up popping up in our conscious thoughts anyway? So if you want to know what is going on in your subconscious, you just get to look out into your reality. Your reality is produced by your your subconscious. Your reality is a solidified version of the assumptions you're holding in subconscious, not in your conscious mind. This is where I see people kind of getting a little bit confused, because their reality is saying one thing and they're going, yeah, but I'm not holding that story. Like, I don't have that story running. I don't have that assumption running. And I'm like, yes, you do. Yeah, you do. It's in your reality. If it's in your reality, it's in your subconscious, because your subconscious is the projector. The conscious mind is the commander of the projector. So you're going and looking at reality and going, what would I like or not like? And then depending on where you're focusing your awareness is what is commanding your subconscious, and your subconscious then goes, okay, it will obey. It has no opinion. It then just goes, there you go. So I'm in constant relationship with my reality, because I want to know what's going on in my subconscious, because I can't see what's in my subconscious. I don't know what's in my subconscious. Most of the assumptions that we're holding in subconscious, we inherited between the ages of 0 and 7. They're not even our assumptions, which is why it is confusing, because you can see something in your reality and go, that's not me. I'm not creating that. That's not a story I'm holding. So it's probably not an assumption that you chose consciously. It's probably an assumption that you inherited from your earlier years that is still running, it's still active, and it's getting pushed out and reflected back in your reality. So the easiest and fastest way to know what's in your subconscious is to look at your reality very objectively, and what's in your reality. What are the facts that are occurring in your reality? Because those facts are produced by the assumptions in your subconscious. So I don't have it with me, but I have a little notebook. I have notebooks everywhere. And in every room in my house, because I am like, if something's happening in my reality, if I have a conversation with somebody, I go out and I bump into somebody, like whatever's happening in my reality, I'm like, oh, wow, okay, I didn't know that was there. Write it out, change it to the opposite, go about my day. this stuff is really simple. It's really fast. Like this is just what works for me. Also, there's no rules with this. You have to find what works for you. These are just like offerings. There's techniques that you can use that you can kind of play with and try, but there's no rules. There's general principles. And one of those principles is that your subconscious is producing your reality. Your reality is reflecting back the assumptions you're holding in subconscious, not the assumptions you're holding in consciousness. I hope that helps. When getting stuck with affirmations, I've found ask-amations to help. Can you use these together? Yeah, as I just said, there's no rules. Find out what works for you. I mix everything up. I don't generally use ask-amations, but I use first, second, and third affirmations. So I'll be like, I am, and then Hedley, you are, and then Hedley is. So I just kind of come at it from all angles, and just depending on the day and depending on my mood, I'll just play around with it. But yeah, you find out what works for you. Hello, SM. Do you believe we can change the appearance, like nose shape, eyes shape, different face? Yes, I answered that one before. Yes, anything in your reality you can absolutely change. You want to look at your assumptions about what it is that's in your reality that you're changing, because you'll have assumptions about what's possible to change and what's not possible to change. So you might think it's possible to change your reality with your SP, like somebody outside of you. But you might have different assumptions about what it's like to change your physical appearance. So before you go and change your physical appearance, I would encourage you to ask the question, what are the assumptions I have about changing my physical appearance? Now, if you're changing your physical appearance and you're not getting much movement, it's probably because you have an assumption that it's a lot harder to change your physical experience. Because whatever you're doing in reality, there's also a second layer where your assumptions about changing that thing are also in play, and you will have different assumptions about changing different things. You will say it's easier to change this and it's a bit harder to change that. And we all have different assumptions about that. The way I deal with it is I come back to the general overriding assumption, which is anything is possible. Anything in my reality is an expression of consciousness. Consciousness is not fixed. Therefore, anything in reality is not fixed. It's up for change. If I can change the assumption that caused that fact that's happening in my reality, then that fact has to change. That is the guiding, overriding principle. So I will always come back to that, and I will start there. And then I will go a little bit more general. Hey, what are my assumptions about changing this specific thing or this specific person? Because I'm still working with people, like specific people that I had some really negative assumptions about. And it's just, like I noticed, like I can do the I am on somebody and it's instant. And then with somebody else, it's not instant. So I have to constantly work with my own assumptions about the specific things that I'm working on, if that makes sense. All these wonderful questions. This is so exciting. I'll do more of these, so because I get to connect with you more like this, which is fun as well. Hi, Kelly. What if really there is absolutely no movement? By the way, I've changed my appearance in like 3 days. Oh, there we go. Kelly's just proven that you can absolutely change your appearance. Thanks, Kelly. You just have to believe it. Yes, indeed. So if you're not getting in movement, and I know this was another question elsewhere, and it's an important question. If you are not getting any movement in your 3D, you've done all the techniques, you've created your scene, you've got your affirmations, you're doing everything, and there's no movement. In my experience, and this is kind of not a fixed, I'm not the one that sets the rules up to this. You are, you're the stars of your movie. But in my experience of working with people and working with myself, it's likely because you have a dominant memory or assumption that is working in opposition to what it is that you're wanting to create in your future. So I have found that revision and envisioning or visualizing, or whatever you want to call it, they work together. Because remember, past and future, they're not real. They're both concepts of consciousness. And if you're creating a future event and it hasn't happened, it's generally because you have an assumption that was based on a past event that is dominant. And the reason that it's dominant is because you've experienced that past with your 5 senses. And it's the tones of reality that is what commands the subconscious to then project it out in your reality. So we're less proficient with giving our future visionings the tones of reality. We can still do it, and you do it. We do it all the time. But it's a lot easier to remember the past because we've experienced the past with our 5 senses. So the past already has the tones of reality. So therefore, if you have a memory that is working in opposition to a future event, that memory and the assumption associated with that memory is going to be dominant. So what you want to do, again, it's super simple. You just go back and you ask yourself, what's my previous experience with this thing that I'm wanting to manifest? And then a memory is likely to pop up. If it doesn't, you can kind of just sit with it and maybe go to sleep and ask yourself, what memory might I have in regards to this topic? And then if the memory revise the memory when you see it, and revise the assumptions that are associated with that memory. And then what happens is that clears the path. And then you'll find that it's like the river, the gates just open and the waters just start flowing in your manifestation. The momentum just ramps up. I've seen that time and time again. Whenever I'm working with a client, if they're not getting movement, I will always ask them, okay, so what's your previous experience with this thing? Bang. The memory's right there. And then I'll be like, wow, well, so can you see how you're out of alignment? Like you've got one memory and an assumption that is dominant that's working in opposition to this. So we just work with this, we clear that, write the new assumption, and now both past and future are in alignment. So you want to create a new memory. Remember, your memories are not set. Your past is not fixed. Your past is just a memory, and memories are just imaginings. They've come from an event. And so when you're changing them, you're not changing the event. You're changing your memory of the event. And that's all we have. The event's finished. It's dead. It's over. But I have found that revision and future visioning really work well together. I hope that helps. Okay, I'll do one more question. Okay, what else have we got here? When getting stuck, I've answered that question. Did the car pop because I had this feeling? I'm not sure I answered that. Hi, Hedley. What if you have an underlying pattern of fear? How do you remove this? Oh, fear. Oh, we love fear. Oh my God, I feel like I'm constantly working with fear. So when we all have it, first of all, you are not alone. We all are working with ourselves and awakening, and fear is part of that awakening because that's part of the illusion. That's part of the setup. So I would encourage you to ask yourself, what is that you're fearing? What's the fear in relation to? And then go into the fear, because like what we do is we push the fear away. We resist the fear. We don't want the fear. And of course we don't. It doesn't feel good. We don't want to experience that. So we push it away. We try and overlay it with like positive stories and positive. You want to bring everything in. You got to bring it. You got to acknowledge it and own it and go, okay, what am I fearing? And then go into that fear and like own it. So if you're fearing of not having enough money and you're like pushing that fear away, oh my God, I don't have enough money. I've got to like do positive affirmations and all of that. Bring it in. I'm fearing I don't have enough money. I don't have enough money. Remember, that's just an assumption. It's the same as I have enough money. I don't have enough money. They're both assumptions. Neither of them are true. One might be a fact in your reality, but that's only a fact because it was an assumption first. So you want to look at what's the assumption. Okay, I don't have enough money. I do have enough money. Which one am I going to choose out of these? Now that you've neutralized them both, I'm choosing I have enough money. Now I'm holding on to I have enough money because you've owned the I don't have enough money and you're not in resistance to it now. It's much easier to hold the I have enough money assumption, and then you hold that long enough and your reality has to reflect it back. As long as you're resisting what it is that you're fearing and trying to push it away, that is going to be what shows up, because that's the dominant assumption that you have running. Fear is just an assumption, and it's generally just it's in your imaginings, like it's something that you're making up in your imagination, because it's not actually happening now, but you're projecting it's going to happen, and it might be based on something that previously happened. So again, you want to revise and you want to envision, so you want to use both in tandem. They really work well together. But the biggest key with fear is to look at it square in the eye. What am I fearing? And then own that fear. I am that. And then I'm also that. Which one am I going to choose? I'm going to choose the favorable one. So I am that. I'm no longer in resistance to what I'm fearing. So then I'm just holding the new story. Thank you. That did help. Okay, great. Yes, fear is annoying. I get it. Yes. Yes. But it's also helping us to awaken, because the whole thing's a setup. If we didn't have the setup, if we didn't have the trials and the tribulations and the fear and the illusions and the contrast, we would have nothing to awaken from. So the world of matter, the world of being human, is the world of contrast. It's the world of time and space. And there is a process of awakening within that. But the whole game is to remember who you are while you're in this body, And then you get to have a lot more fun with it, because as long as you're believing that reality is something that's happening to you and it's fixed and this is the way you are and this is the way things are, you're going to have a tough time. And that's why I love law of assumption, because law of assumption is what can liberate you from, it's just, I mean, it's just going on in imagination. But just always remember that your consciousness and what you're doing with your awareness is what's real. That's real. And I want you to be placing more value on that, because we've been taught the opposite, but that's what's real. And then your reality is reflecting that back. So be really gentle with yourself if you don't get it right. And if your reality shows up something opposite to what you're working on, that's cool. We're just waking up. You just, like, that's what the original sin is, where you miss the mark. You've just missed the mark. That's it. There's nothing wrong. You've not made any mistakes. It's not your fault. There's nothing, you're not damaged. You're not broken. It's just assumptions that we're holding that are producing our reality. And once we become aware of the assumptions, then we can rewrite the assumptions, and then we produce another reality. I hope that makes sense. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to do more of these. So if you have questions, just let me know, and I'll go through the questions as well and see if I can answer them in another video. But thank you so much for being here and joining me, and thank you for supporting my channel. And I love, being here and interacting with you guys as well. And thank you for doing this work with your movie, because as you awaken to who you are, you awaken everyone in your movie, and then we're all awakening together. We're all helping, and it just becomes one big awakening, and it's really fun. So anyway, I will look forward to seeing you in the next video, and sending you much, much love from Australia. Have a beautiful day. Bye.